Welcome back. Mainstream media had a pretty hard time staying on track this year, something we say every year. Here to break down the worst reporting of 2021 is Beverly Hallberg, president of the District Media Group and Heritage Foundation fellow. Happy New Year's to you, Beverly. Number one on your list,
Happy New Year.
The false claim that CRT is not taught in Virginia schools. Take a listen.
Specifically targeted the issue of education and what he calls critical race theory, even though it's not taught in Virginia schools.
Critical race theory, which isn't real.
You oppose critical race theory being taught in schools, which I should say is not part of Virginia's curriculum.
Beverly, seems like the voters of Virginia saw right through this, right?
They did, and we could go through clip after clip after clip of various media pundits and journalists making this false claim that critical race theory doesn't exist. What they decided to do was to use a very narrowly defined term, or use critical race theory in very small definitions in order to make this false claim. Parents saw right through it. Not only did they see it in their own child's education in Virginia, but the Virginia Department of Education's own website even uses the term critical race theory numerous times. Fortunately, we have smart Americans out there who can see through the bias on TV.
Next, the false Border Patrol whipping story. Watch.
Should we be looking at the budget of Department of Homeland Security? Because I was not aware that whips, which come from the slavery era, were part of the package that we issue to any sort of law enforcement or government-sanctioned personnel.
Quite a leap to a conclusion by Joy Reid and others on this one, huh, Beverly?
And also pointing to, I think, many in the media, the closest they've ever gotten to a horse is maybe watching the show Yellowstone and not understanding that this wasn't a whip. These were the reins being used. But you did have the El Paso Times that, first of all, put this narrative out there. And then you had, as you just saw there, Joy Reid retweeting it, talking about it. You even had politicians like AOC claiming that this was horrific, what was going on the border. And of course, it never was going on. But we didn't hear any retractions. And often, even if there is a retraction, that doesn't get as much coverage as the initial story. So just another example of the bias that we find in the media.
Finally, the ghost car reporting by CNN on that horrific murderous rampage there, parade rampage in Waukesha. Here is the line from CNN, quote, "Waukesha will hold a moment of silence today, marking 1 week since a car drove through a city Christmas parade, killing 6 people, injuring scores of others." Look, Beverly, they knew what they were doing in using the active versus the passive voice. Why did they dishonor the victims like that?
Well, they didn't want to point to what was really taking place. It didn't fit their narrative. They didn't want to point out that the man who perpetuated this is a man who is a minority, who also has a long criminal record. And so they try to pin it on an autonomous vehicle, on an object instead of a person. And even beyond this, they still try to downplay, CNN especially try to downplay this crash, saying it was a parade crash versus an actual killing, a tragedy, a massacre. And so sadly, we see this when it comes to tragedies across the country. Unless it fits their narrative, they don't want to actually put the blame where it should be.
It is shameful. It is absolutely shameful. Beverly Hallberg, we wish you the very best in 2022. Happy New Year.